Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning into our webinar. We're hosting this as ACEnet, but today we're joined by Alexandria Polinoski, who is the Assistant Director for Content within Student Affairs, Communication, and Marketing at Ohio University. Today, she will be sharing tips for taking photographs with your cell phone with the primary goal of using them on your social media.
All right, hi everyone. We are just going to go through some basics of photography that can be used if you are using your phone as your camera. So the first thing we're going to talk about is lighting. And one of the first things that you might want to do in a slightly dimly lit area is use that flash on your phone, or if you do have a camera, you want to use that built-in flash, but you definitely want to avoid that. It blows out the image and causes some pretty harsh light. So when you can, you want to try to find good sources of natural light, like a window, especially if you have control over the situation. And then you want to avoid harsh light and overhead shadows from things. If you are using a camera and you want to get into flash, there's a link here on how to use speed lights. Okay. So with window lighting, you see in this first image on your left, this is a good use of window lighting. We have the window to the side of the subject, and there's still a little bit of shadow, but it's lighting up her face, and there's no harsh shadows behind her. But on the right, we have her in front of the window, and the light that's coming in the window causes the subject to just become a silhouette. You might do this on purpose in a few situations, but most of the time this is not the lighting that you want. And a lot of times people are like, oh, I love the background through the window, but unfortunately you have to choose which one you want to capture. So you always want to try to put the subject next to the window, not in front of it. Okay, these are some examples of hard and soft lights. So the image at the top uses a portrait as an example, and you see some shadows from harsh light. Maybe there's some really bright light coming from the side. And then the image next to it is softer light. You can see both of her eyes a little bit better, and that just has to do with the angle that she's positioned in. And then the bottom photo is some harsh light, and we'll get to time of day in the next few slides. But this photo was taken in the middle of the day. Clear blue, beautiful sky, but that also means really, really bright, harsh light. It's not going to be good for photos. Right. No. Okay, so these are a few examples of time of day and then weather and how that plays into photos. Sorry, it looks like my PowerPoint got a little messed up. We have some good use of shadows in the top left corner. So this is, maybe you're trying to get a more creative shot of a space that people have seen a million times. For example, this is College Green on campus here. Everyone has seen that a million times. If you go here, you live here. The bottom image on the left is an example of when bad weather is good. So if it's a little bit rainy or a little bit overcast or there's some fog when the sun is coming up in the morning, it's actually going to make for a pretty beautiful photo. And it's better than if you have a beautiful sunny day for photos. The top right image is golden hour. So depending on what time of year it is, this happens at different times in the evening. But it's that time before the sun really starts to go down when everything is just kind of glowing and you get this nice golden light. So if you have control over what time you're taking photos, this is a really good time of day to aim for. It's usually early evening. But again, depending on the season, could change an hour or two. The bottom right photo is blue hour. So this is a little after sunset, but there's still a little light left in the sky. And this can make for some really beautiful evening images. Okay, and just a little bit more on use of light and shadows. Again, you want to pay attention to the direction of the sunlight on your subjects. This is especially if you're taking pictures outside. These are the same three people standing in the same fields, and they are just positioned a little bit differently. And you can see in the bottom image, the photographer positioned themselves a little bit lower as well, and was able to capture much nicer light on their faces than in that top image. See a lot of shadows. Okay, and then these are some examples of soft lights. This was a community food initiatives event and a local farm, homecoming farm here. And this was probably around 7 p.m. I want to say in the summer. So you're getting a little bit of that golden hour light. It's getting really soft as the sun goes down, and it just creates these really nice pastel colors. So again, time of day is so important for taking photos. And this top image of John the farmer here was taken pretty early in the morning. So you'll get that same really nice light right around sunrise too. Okay, now let's get a little bit into product photography. If you're taking overhead shots of products, you can get really creative and take some cool images. If you're shooting from above, but you want to be careful with the light again. Light just repeats itself through this whole PowerPoint. It's really important in photos. So you can see in this other image, this photographer got a step stool. That's a very simple piece of equipment that most of us own. So you can get yourself lifted a little bit to get a different perspective. And then she also has just, it might be a piece of cardboard or something in the background as a backdrop. Again, you don't need to invest in a photo studio for product photography. You can iron a sheet out and put it on a table and have like a nice brick wall like this in the background or something, and that'll work. You can create beautiful images with things that you can find around your house or around your business. And again, that step stool, she has that window light coming in, so she doesn't need flash, good natural lights, and she's got a good angle over her product. Right, framing. So these images are examples of shallow depth of field, and here we have an ACEnet client's product, Nature's Magic, and my cat as examples. And the top image was taken in a living room, and that's a couch in the background, but with a shallow depth of field, it just becomes a nice clean gray backdrop, and it's a much lighter color compared to the bottle and the labels on it, so there's some good contrast there. And then they're just sitting on the owner's coffee table, and that was our photo studio for the day. But then we can crop these images however she might need, for her website or social media, wherever she's using them, and that was just a simple way to have a clean background. So just using that shallow depth of field, which is when the background is blurry, but the subject is really close to the camera and is in focus, it'll make any situation look a little bit cleaner and nicer. Okay. Locking focus on your phone. And again, it looks like the text got a little messed up here. But if you have an iPhone, you just tap and hold on whatever subject you want to lock the focus on until you see this little notification that's at the top of this image that says AEAF lock. And that way you can adjust the lighting or move your phone around to reframe the image. But whatever you selected as the point of focus will stay in focus until you take that picture. If you have an Android phone, you tap once to focus, and then there should be a little lock symbol somewhere on your screen. It seems to be different for every Android phone. And you just hit that little padlock symbol to lock the focus of whatever you just selected on the screen. So again, that's important to keep whatever you want to be in subject and then adjust the light. So you might experience, like in this example of my desk phone, this window is in the background. I don't want the phone to be right in the middle of the image, but every time I keep moving my cell phone, my whole phone refocuses and readjusts because of the window light in the background. So using this lock feature will allow you to move your phone around to frame the picture a little bit better without it auto-correcting and messing up your image every time. Okay, this top image here, you can't right now, unless there's a new feature in one of the many new phones that just came out, adjust shutter speed manually from the built-in camera app on your phone. But this is one example here of an application you can use. You can download. It's just another camera application, but within it you'll be able to adjust shutter speed. Shutter speed is how long it's called the aperture within a camera is open. And imagine it as just this little cylinder with a little thing that flaps open to capture the image in front of you. And the longer that that flap is open, the more light that gets let in and the more movement that gets let in. So if you're trying to capture something moving, you want a quicker shutter speed, and your phone might not always be able to do this automatically by itself. So I have links here to the Apple and Android version of this app, and you can mess around with a few more settings than what your built-in camera app on your phone allows you to do. And then this other image on the bottom left corner is just pointing out that whenever you're taking a picture, it's really good to stop and look at what's in the background before you capture the photo. So this photo, I was just trying to take a picture of this meeting that was happening, and I wasn't really paying attention to what was going on in the background. I was just making sure I got all 3 people in the picture, and I was like, okay, I'm good to go. But there's a yoga ball in the background, there's some bags on the floor, there's stuff all over the place that I probably could have moved out of the way, or just angled the photo a little bit better to not capture those things. So always take a minute before you take the photo to just look at what's around what you're trying to capture too. And if you need to rearrange some furniture or tell people to move or whatever you need to do that to get a better image. All right, the rule of thirds and the golden ratio. These are concepts that you might not think about every time you're snapping a quick picture on your phone, but they have a lot to do with composition. And so this top image displays the golden ratio, which is that orange swirly thing in the picture, and then the grid that's on top of both images I'll use as I explain the rule of thirds. So the rule of thirds is a compositional rule that suggests dividing the image into thirds and placing the subject on one of those sides where those lines in those grids intersect instead of right in the middle. Sometimes a centered image is good. All of these rules that I'm telling you are entirely situational, but our eyes really like to see images that follow these rules a little bit more. So this man sitting on top of a mountain here, he is over to the right of the image, but there's also some objects in focus that follow that orange line a little bit too. That's the golden ratio. So your eyes just kind of follow this natural curve through an image, and if something is intersecting with all of those lines, it's just a lot more aesthetically pleasing to the person looking at the picture. In the football picture in the bottom corner, the player that's in focus is following the rule of thirds. He's on 2 intersections of lines on the left side, but you also have a little bit going on in the background as well, but it's a little more out of focus. So I'm not distracted by the other player in the background. My eyes still go straight to this main player, but I can kind of get a better idea of what's happening in the image from that background context as well. Okay, editing. And this mainly applies to editing that you might do in Instagram. If you're using other camera apps, you might be able to do similar things, but this mainly applies to when you take a photo into Instagram, or Twitter and Facebook also allow you to edit the photo a little bit. So this is all things that you don't want to do. There's that selective focus feature. I think it's a filter or something on Instagram. And it just allows you to keep like a dot of the image in focus. You don't really want to use that. What it's trying to do is copy that depth of field that we talked about a few slides ago with the Nature's Magic products and my cat. It's trying to copy that blurry background subject in focus concept, but it doesn't do it very well because it's just an in-phone application. So you kind of want to think about that ahead of time when you're taking the photo. And then phones also, a lot of the newer ones have a really nice portrait mode now that does a good job of capturing that shallow depth of field, but in a way that a large digital camera would do. A little bit better than what Instagram did in this filter. You don't want to overuse filters. This one in the top right corner looks like it maybe had 3 filters put on top of it. It's a little orange. That could have been because it was in this warehouse building with some poor lighting. So maybe you just need to adjust the exposure a little bit, which is an option in Instagram, but you don't need to filter the heck out of it to make it look better. There are a few filters that look nice, but try to avoid the ones that will change the colors so much from what they really look like. Just try to correct for the lighting in an image. Then when it comes to cropping, you never want to crop a person where any of their joints are. So in this image, I cut John's hands off in this crop. We don't want to do that. You don't want to crop at the knees or at the elbows or at the neck. Try to be able to keep a little bit of that image above or below those joints. When you crop right where those joints are, it's just really obvious in the image. And it's really good to pay attention if there's people in the background of an image and maybe the main subject is cropped fine, but you missed this guy in the background that got his head cut off from your crop. You want to pay attention to everyone in the picture when you are cropping. Okay, and the last thing I'm going to talk about applies a little more directly to Instagram, but it's good to keep in mind when you are taking photos of products or of events or whatever that you might be putting onto these social media platforms. So Instagram especially kind of serves as a digital photo album of your brand, of your organization, whatever it might be. So you want it to look clean and you want it to really reflect everything you do, but you don't want it to be full of ads for everything that you do. It's kind of more of a subtle advertising tool. So this first gallery on the left is Ohio University's main Instagram page. And you'll see it's all images, it's all of different things happening around campus, different people, different places, different distances from subjects. There's a really good variety of images here. None of them are super over edited, all of them are cropped pretty well. And then you'll see on the other side, to the right is the Student Affairs Instagram. This is an older version, we have improved, but I went back in time to screenshot this. And it's full of a lot of images with text over them, which is not great for a few reasons I'll get into soon. But it's also almost all full of ads for different events that were coming up rather than just lovely photos of things that our students were doing around campus, which would be a much better way to tell our story through this platform than these different blocks of text that we have here. So you'll also want to pay attention to the way that Instagram will crop your photos once you upload them. So even now that you can upload a horizontal image on Instagram, it will still crop it to a square in your gallery. So be mindful of that if you are not cropping directly to a square when you upload. You'll see on the bottom row on the Student Affairs one, a bunch of text got cut off because we must have put on a more horizontal image, not a square. And then text is not great for accessibility purposes. Unless the information is repeated in the caption below. You don't really want your Instagram post to be full of a ton of words, especially if someone's looking on a smaller device. Even if they're not using a screen reader, it might be hard just to read the words if they're too tiny. And then you want about 70% of your content to be organic rather than ads, which just means photos really of things that are happening at your business or at your organization. It can still be event coverage. It can still, the caption can still say this thing is coming up or buy this product or whatever, but you want the picture itself to be telling a little bit more of a story than whatever text you might be putting below it. And then when you zoom out, it'll look and look at this grid view, you'll want it to look a lot more like a photo album than a block of a lot of just different random content. All right, that is everything that I have today.
Okay, thank you, Alexandria, for joining us and sharing your wealth of knowledge. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out at info@acenetworks.org, and we can definitely get those answered for you. And tune in for our next webinar.